Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the session titled Strengthening Land Tenure Rights of Smallholder Farmers for Sustainable Food Systems and Climate Resilience. And if this is not your session, this is a good time for you to walk out of the room. Okay. So I'm really pleased to have all of you here. Let me just quickly introduce myself. I'm Jo Puri. I'm the Associate Vice President of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, also lovingly called IFAD. We are both a UN organization as well as an IFI. What does that mean? As an international financing institution, we provide financing, which is concessional or at market rates, to more than 80 countries that we work in. And as a UN organization, we are committed to leaving no one behind. That is, we are focused on ensuring that development occurs locally, that we are taking everyone together as we focus on rural development and as we focus on investing in the rural poor. An important part of this, and this actually brings me to the first part of what I do want to say, is recognizing that we go further when we go together. And so we work with a whole host of partners in this space who are also collaborating with us on this event. So let me recognize the International Land Coalition, the World Rural Forum, the Asian Farmers Association for Sustainable Rural Development, and COPROFARM, which is the Confederation of Organizations of Family Producers of the expanded Mercosur, right? So it's really important that we recognize that we are really going together forward with a whole host of partners to ensure that the importance of smallholder farmers is recognized in our overall development trajectory. Before I introduce the session, a couple of things that really hit me as really important. So we are all recognizing that, of course, it's really important to focus on food and agriculture. But a couple of things are really important to recognize for smallholder farmers. And in the context of climate especially, it becomes even more important to recognize this. First is to recognize that smallholder farmers produce 1/3 of the overall food that we consume, right? So if you take a plate, divide it into 3 parts, the third part, 1/3 part, is produced by smallholder farmers. That's important. But there's another part of this as well. Smallholder farmers are a very important participant in the overall climate debate. Remember that on one side, food systems account for 1/3 of the overall global emissions that we are seeing. But smallholder farmers can be a huge solution in this space. Why do I say that? They can be a solution in this space because we know that smallholder farmers are far more efficient in producing food, right? So they currently farm 16% of the overall, 11% of the overall land area devoted to agriculture. But they produce 1/3 of the overall food, which means they are superbly more efficient in producing food than large-scale monocropping farmers, right? So that's the first thing. So if you truly want to produce more food with less, you've got to think about smallholder farmers. Second, they are far more likely to be using methods and techniques that are good for the environment. First, in an evidence review that my co-authors and I did, we found that smallholder farmers tend to be far more diverse in terms of the kinds of crops that they cultivate compared to monocropping large farms. So they're far more diverse. They're far more likely to use agroecological practices, to be using agrobiodiversity practices compared to large-scale monocropping farmers. So which means if we really want to think about a livable planet, if we really want to think about sustainable production practices, we've got to focus on smallholder farmers because they represent the solution to many of the ailments that we find that is besieging the earth today, including The fact that we need more food, smallholder farmers are more efficient, including the fact that we need to increase the diversity and reduce the amount of carbon emissions and GHG emissions in the atmosphere. Smallholder farmers are far more good at doing that because they are far more diverse and are capable of adopting far more innovative practices compared to larger farmers. So it's really important that we think of them as solutions to many of the ills. Now, recognizing this is essentially the reason we are all here today. Smallholder farmers are far more likely to not have secure land tenure, right? And that inhibits their ability to not just cultivate their land and innovate and invest in good techniques, but it also inhibits their ability to access finance. You don't have land, you don't have collateral, you don't get to go to a bank and borrow money from there or access finance. So land tenure then becomes a really important pathway through which we can enhance the ability of smallholder farmers to get to finance, to invest in strong and biodiverse practices, and truly to make this earth far more livable. And that's why we are here today, so that we can think about some of the solutions and, of course, some of the challenges. So I'm really excited today with this overall session, and the way we are going to essentially run this is we're going to have first a video for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to introduce our panelists and the objectives of the overall session. So over to video, please. Thank you. Great. Thank you very much. So now I'm very, very privileged to introduce our panelists. And I'm going to ask Alberto and Irish to introduce themselves.
Ok. Gracias. Yo soy Alberto Ercilio Brock. Yo soy un agricultor familiar del extremo sur del Brasil, en el estado del Río Grande del Sur. Y allá de ser un agricultor, yo soy un líder gremial. Yo soy vicepresidente de la CONTAC, la Confederación de Organización de Agricultores Familiares de Brasil. Soy el presidente de la COPROFAM, que es una confederación de organizaciones representativas de productores familiares del Mercosur ampliado. Y soy también parte como vicepresidente del Foro Rural Mundial. Gracias.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Irish Bagilat with the Asian Farmers Association for Sustainable Rural Development. So I am here representing our network, which is composed of 20 national farmers federation and cooperatives in 16 countries in Asia. So a pleasure to be with you.
Introduce myself? Oh, I'm in time, sorry, I'm never late, but I was up in Kenya and came to this morning. My name is Lorena Kinyawur. I work for the Kenya National Farmers Federation. Thank you.
Okay, good. Let me first start with Alberto. Since you're representing 50% of the population of the world, you're the only man on this panel, Alberto, so we're going to just start with you first. Alberto, you represent COPROFAM, that in turn represents 4 million family farmers, peasants, and indigenous people. from 7 countries from Latin America. We know that Latin America and the Caribbean is home to a huge diversity of species and has many indigenous peoples groups also located there. Can you tell us a little bit about what it takes for a family farmer in Latin America and the Caribbean to produce sustainably, and what are the challenges they face? And I'm going to give all of our panelists 3 minutes. Thank you.
Son muchos los desafíos de la agricultura familiar, campesina, indígena de todo el mundo, pero parece más grande en América Latina, en el Caribe. Son muchos, pero comenzaría diciendo que uno de los más preocupantes en este momento son los impactos de los cambios climáticos. Nosotros já estamos sentindo os impactos. A sequía está ocorrendo basicamente todos os anos e todos os anos está mais forte. Brasil, Argentina, Uruguai, Paraguai, os países de América Central. E ao mesmo tempo que sofrimos com a sequía, quando passa, temos enormes chuvas. Muitas chuvas torrenciais, com impacto de perdas de vidas humanas, de animais. E os que mais sofrem estes impactos são os mais pobres, especialmente os agricultores familiares. Esse é um desafio muitíssimo grande. Sabemos que para ser frente a esses desafios, necessitamos de políticas específicas, porque nós temos a consciência que a agricultura familiar, campesina, indígena, é parte da solução desses problemas. Pero, para isso, necessitamos de política específica, necessitamos de fundos. Nós também temos um problema muito importante, que são exatamente a cada dia se achicam as propriedades dos agricultores, porque a concentração dos meios de produção, como a terra, se acentua a cada dia na região. Necessitamos também muito de políticas específicas para este setor da agricultura familiar, políticas públicas, políticas de Estado, políticas de assistência técnica, políticas de financiação, política de educação, política de desenvolvimento, não solamente para a produção, mas poder ter acesso à vida, a viver bem o campo, ao desenvolvimento. Portanto, estamos num momento muito importante dentro desta COP28, que esperamos que o mundo, os governos, as organizações multilaterais empiecem a levar em consideração aqueles que produzem em torno de 70% dos alimentos do mundo, que são os agricultores familiares, campesinos e indígenas. Queremos que a voz desses agricultores chegue às decisões das COP, porque nós estamos invisíveis. Não temos acesso à financiação, não chega aos agricultores. Portanto, este é um momento muito propício, um evento como este, para que a voz dos agricultores familiares, homens, mulheres, que vivem, que produzem o sagrado alimento, possa chegar a estes centros de decisões. Graças.
Thank you very much, Alberto. Before I move on to you, Irish, if I had to ask you for one thing that you would ask for from this COP, what would it be? Tough decision.
Se eu pudesse dizer um elemento que leve em considerações em las decisões da agricultura familiar, La financiação tem que chegar aos agricultores familiares. Necessitamos que estes espaços de decisão possam tomar decisão que possa frenar os cambios climáticos. O calhamento global é uma questão muito séria e necessitamos urgentemente, inclusive não solamente pelos agricultores, mas para salvar o mundo, o planeta, que se tome decisões para frenar o processo de calhamento e as mitigações de conviver, porque já estamos sentindo os reflexos, os impactos dos cambios climáticos. Graças.
Thank you very much, Alberto. So I'm going to move to Irish now. Irish AFA represents a very powerful network that strengthens its members as key drivers and actors for sustainable rural development. And we know that you've mobilized your membership around the climate change discussion quite a bit. What are the main messages that family farmers from Asia want this COP28, to hear when it comes to their role as solution providers to the climate crisis?
Yes, thank you, Joe. And first of all, I want first to recognize my colleagues in the network. So they are here in the room, farmers organization from different countries in Asia. So yes, we did a consultation. Of course, IFAD has also supported us, and FFF also supported us to do the consultation among our network. Yes, we are representing millions of small-scale farmers as a network, but we know that there are also 350 million smallholder farmers in Asia who are already producing and or are already adapting to the climate change impact, even without support outside. When we did the consultation among our members, one of the crucial impact that was highlighted is the individual impact. We are experiencing heat, and farmers, fishers, we work in the field, so physical discomfort because of the heat was one of the express impact of this change in temperature. Dry spells, heat waves, unusual pest occurrences, weeds becoming more difficult to manage and control. This was also expressed even in Central Asia. Intense rain and changes in rainfall pattern, extreme typhoons and strong winds, etc. And farmers have been experiencing this in the past years, and they are already responding to these challenges, meaning we have that innovation capacity to respond to the climate change. The practices that we are doing, some of us are practicing agroforestry, for example, and we know for a fact, we have here our colleagues in Indonesia, in Kyrgyzstan, who have been promoting agroforestry, diversified farming, organic farming, and we know that these are the solutions that are gaining attention. If you have visited some of the session, these are some of the solutions that the farmers are already doing, are getting attention, because by practicing agroforestry, we know that we are extracting carbon from the soil, through the trees. We put it back in the soil through composting, so our soils are actually serving as a carbon sink. Even the fishing community, they have been experiencing intense effect of climate change, and through their organization, they are rehabilitating mangroves. So these solutions that we already have, we want to highlight them. We want to show that we can be equal partners in fighting climate change. And also, I have mentioned earlier that we are doing this through our organization. So I think one of the message that we want to highlight also is the capacity of our organizations to really to support farmers adapt to climate change. And also another message that we want to be heard, as also mentioned by Alberto, we want to be part of the decision making because we have a solution. We are contributing to feeding, no, to feeding our communities despite the challenges that we are facing. And for us to be able to do this, donors, resource institutions has to invest, has to partner with us, has to recognize, no, that innovation capacity that we have. They have to recognize that the farmers organization has the capacity, no, to really support, no, small scale farmers.
Thank you very much, Irish. So what I'm hearing is recognizing that small-scale farmers should be part of decision-making, that many of the solutions, including rehabilitating mangroves, composting, no-till agriculture, agroforestry. There's a lot that is embedded among small-scale farmers, and of course in Asia you've got more than 350 million small-scale farmers, and the capacity not just for innovation but for climate adaptation is huge, and it's really important to be thinking about them as key players. Lorraine, I'm going to come to you now, and you represent the KENAF, which is in turn representing 1.6 million farmers from Kenya, a country which itself is very rich with biodiversity and has a history of strong and solid civil society. In your view, is the role of family farmers in Kenya recognized in the overall COP proceedings and in the overall fighting the climate crisis? What is missing, and what can you specifically promote so that we start to recognize the contribution of small-scale farmers and family farmers in this context? Thanks.
Thank you. So in the context of Kenya, for example, we take the NDC. The NDC is domiciled in the Ministry of Environment. That means forestry is what is recognized as something that contributes to emission reduction, not really what the farmers do. And actually, if you look at the Kenya NDC, they have adaptation and mitigation measures, and agroforestry is not under agriculture. Agroforestry is under environment. So you start seeing that the missing link is at the policy level. And where the policies are, the implementation becomes a problem. So there are quite a number of policies in Kenya that somewhat recognize the role of family farmers as a solution. There's the agricultural sector transformation and growth strategy. There's the climate smart agriculture strategy. There are quite a number. But unfortunately, we always say in Kenya, they're always very good on paper. But that is where they stay. So what is missing? The resources and the political will to make it happen. So those are some of the things that are happening. But apart from just political will, the policies, the research to practice. Unfortunately in Kenya, we rely a lot on donor-funded research. And sometimes donor-funded research is driven from what the donor wants or their strategic goals, and not really what is at the Kenya level or the national level, or even at the subnational level. When we talk about extension support, unfortunately, it's also something that is missing in Kenya, but I also believe it's missing almost everywhere. For example, in Kenya, they say that the overall good extension is between 700 and one farmer, I'm not very sure, but you'll find that extension in Kenya is dead. So that means the support that the small-scale farmers want is not there. And investment in that extension is also not there. And then maybe the other thing is on incentives. You'll find farmers practicing, yes, because I mean, farmers are the ones who've been on land the whole time. They know, they have the knowledge, the indigenous knowledge. They can tell you actually when it's going to rain or not, but we're not using that. You know, so those are some of the challenges that are there. There are quite a number of things that are missing, but they stem at the policy level, where we sort of misplace where the solutions are. At KENAF level, we have quite a number of things that we are practicing. But one of the key things that I want to highlight is the KENAF Farm Forestry and Afforestation Program. It's an ambitious program, of course, but one of the key things that drives it is that it's farmer-driven. it's the farmers who've decided that we want to be part of the solution, whether you like it or not. So, and what that needs, of course, is resources. It also needs a lot of capacity building for the farmers. It needs information dissemination. So those are some of the things that are lacking, but most of all, it needs finance. And that is where the key missing link is. And I believe it's actually where we are talking about a lot of frameworks currently, even at the COP28. But then what? That is where the question is.
Very impassioned. Thank you very much, Laureen. And what I'm hearing you say is in the NDCs, you're already including family farmers and small-scale producers and farmers. There is clearly some policy exists, but it's still not sufficient. And then, of course, key is financing. And I heard you talk about also how donor research, how donor-funded research is really looking at priorities of the donors, not so much of the groups of people that you're representing, including family farmers, including small-scale producers, including indigenous people, including a lot of the marginalized populations in Kenya. And what, interestingly, I also heard extension is dead in Kenya, and you really need far more investment in extension services because farmers need that technical assistance. And that there needs to be incentives for indigenous knowledge as well. Excellent. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now to the second round. And I think you have such a fabulous chair that we are on time. It's mainly because you're sticking to time. So thank you very much for that. What we'll do is we'll ask you for a minute and a half of intervention. And I'm going to start with Laureen, Irish, and Alberto in a reverse order this time. And my question is that all of you have asked for finance. All of you have asked for technical assistance, recognition and policy, etc. But now if you really wanted it to be super focused, right? Finance, we hear that everywhere. The most recent report that just came out from the Center for Climate Policy Initiative that IFAD commissioned, we found actually that the overall climate finance that is going to small-scale producers is now down from $10 billion to $5.5 billion. There's a 44% reduction. So overall, as a percentage of climate finance, from where it was at 1.7%, now we are at 0.8%. And what I really need all of you to think about is obviously advocate that we've got to push more financing into this space for small-scale producers and be as eloquent as you all were, but also to recognize the importance of adaptation. One of the other key things that I'm finding in this COP is that, yes, there's a lot of focus on renewable energy technologies, etc., as well as loss and damage. But even before loss and damage occurs, you've got to start to think about adaptation. So with that context, if there was one thing that I could ask you, and you have to be far more precise than saying adaptation or finance, I'm going to ban those words for this round. You have to talk about specifically what would you ask for from this COP?
That's a hard question because you've taken all the answers.
I know, the 2 words. I took away the 2 words because you've got to say how much, to whom, and over what time period, and in what form.
All right. So how much to whom? To whom the farmers directly, whether it's farm organizations, they have to, we have to have targeted climate finance, not blanketed. If it is going for the youth, then it goes to the youth. And at any point in time, it is accessible to those who actually need it. There are quite a number of chains when we talk about grants. There are quite a number of chains. And sometimes what happens is half of that money goes to an INGO that uses it to fly to come to this country, that kind of thing. We need targeted. We need to be accountable for the money that we are spending. Because, every other time we come here, we'll say, FAO has, supported this. But then what? We need to get out of fast level outcomes, where we say we trained 5 people. Then what? we need to go to outcomes 3 and 4, where actually something changed and we can quantify it. And then we have to be also very efficient and adequate with the finance that we're talking about. But there's also the issue of transparency when we're talking about it. So for me, I wouldn't say that there's an amount that we can put, but there's a need for us to actually increase finance that goes into agricultural and smallholder farmers. Very specific, let them be, if it's gender responsive or women responsive, it has to be very specific. We have to be accountable, and then we have to have it to be efficient so that we minimize the wastage in between. Thank you.
Good, Laureen. So I appreciate that. And, you know, one of the challenges always is in this space, how much and in what form. So, and given that you're working and you're part of the NDCs, this is the one encouragement that I want to provide to everyone that I speak to, also looking at the NDCs and then looking across, is that there's no quantification of that need for finance, right? Everybody says, yeah, we need it. But when you are then going to a donor or to a contributor, you've got to think about how much, how, to whom, and in what form. So I would really encourage everyone to think about that. How much? Very important. That has to be your investment proposal. Irish.
Yes, thanks, Jo. I think, yeah, I agree. That is a very important question, and I think that's also the support that we would be asking, no, from IFAD, no. IFAD has championed, no, the cause of farmers organization, and I think that is a very concrete, no, collaboration, because within our network with other regional organizations, we have this dream that we want to fulfill, where we want to advocate, no, for a fund, no, for farmers, no, for farmers to adopt. And I mean, this is a dream that we have conceptualized and we want to realize. And those are the questions, the exact question that we have to answer. And yes, in terms of amount, of course, it has been discussed, but I cannot declare that now. But I think we want a finance, a specific fund that can be accessed by regional farmers organization, by national farmers organizations. So, I mean, through the regional organizations, then they can be accessed by national and subnational farmers organization. And of course, we also want to hopefully know that financing will also focus on really innovating with farmers. A very concrete example, while there are a lot of funds that has been used, for example, to improve, for example, support to fishers, no, but the innovations are not designed are not designed to respond to the specific need of localities. So I hope that when financing through the government, you know, are enabled, that there will be a specific fund for innovating together with farmers. So I think that would be the two concrete things that I want to mention. Our dream, no, of establishing this fund for farmers to adopt and to transform our practices, and an innovation fund that would allow researchers to work in equal partnership with farmers to really innovate what we need, no, in this hotter and changing climate.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Irish. So before I go to Alberto, I think, so yes, at IFAD, you know, we keep thinking about exactly the innovation capacity of farmers, of small-scale farmers. And I think what I'm going to ask you to do is to advocate for exactly those kind of funds, for institutions that can help to manage it. But I think what Laureen said in terms of how much of it actually percolates to the farmer is very important. And knowing what the overall impact is. Don't think about 5 farmers. You've got to think about how practices actually change on the ground. And innovation. But again, my question to Alberto is, how much, what? Laureen, I think your vote is on innovation, so I'm going to take that. Sorry, Irish, your vote is on innovation. Laureen, I'm unclear yet. But what are you going to focus on if you did get the money? So how much, what, and in what form? Alberto.
Não vou te responder quanto. Se eu te disser a cifra agora, estou te mentindo. Nós outros temos que levar esse tema aqui, é um tema muito sério. este tema que estamos falando aqui não é um problema de los agricultores, é um problema da soberania del mundo. Nós produzimos alimento não só para nós, para o mundo. Então, os governos devem saber que tipo de desenvolvimento querem quem produz alimento. Os agricultores familiares, os campesinos, ou são as grandes empresas transnacionais. Então, esse é um problema muito importante o que estamos conversando aqui. Pera, nós outros defendemos, me associo às companheiras, necessitamos ter um fundo mundial de toda essa plata que se discute, né, do cambio climático, das grandes empresas, dos países. Nós outros necessitamos de um grande fundo para apoiar a agricultura familiar, campesina, indígena. Este fundo são para mitigar, este fundo são para apoiar, este fundo é para fazer com que os agricultores tenham acesso às novas adaptações, que tenham os cambios, nós outros dizemos as trocas de saberes entre a forma tradicional de produzir e também as novas inovações que temos. Portanto, necessitamos que as organizações como o FIDA, a FAO, as organizações multilaterais, possam chegar com esses fundos diretamente às organizações dos agricultores. Porque até a hora se perde, quando chega na ponta, no terreno, não há nada. Então, nós outros queremos levar uma mensagem de que se crie mundialmente um fundo para apoiar os agricultores familiares, as organizações, para que estes fundos possam ajudar a tornar mais sustentável os sistemas alimentares. Nós outros somos parte dos sistemas alimentares que não são sustentáveis. Nós outros queremos ser parte da solução para mitigar os impactos dos cambios climáticos, pero a centralidade também é produzir para o hambre, a terminar com o hambre, diminuir a pobreza. Nós outros não podemos conviver com mais de 800 milhões de pessoas que passam hambre todos os dias. Não podemos discutir esses temas se não discutimos o tema da agricultura familiar. Portanto, nós outros queremos deixar uma mensagem que nos associamos às companheiras de que se crie um grande fundo mundial para apoio à produção de alimentos sustentável da agricultura familiar em todo o mundo.
Thank you. Can I ask the interpreter actually to speak into your mic because we can barely hear you, and possibly to be more clear, we could, I think we were discussing it, we could barely hear what you were saying and it was very halting. So I think the interpretation needs to be faster and better. Thank you very much, Alberto. And what I'm hearing is that you are advocating for a fund that is accessible to small-scale producers and family farmers, both for mitigation, adaptation, and to be seeing them as solution providers. Sorry, this is what I picked up, but if anybody wants to add to that, did you want to add? This is what I picked up from the translation, which I think will require a little bit more work.
Yes, I think it was about trying to really trust in the capacity of organizations to really manage a specific fund for family farmers organizations for both. He's asking for mitigation and adaptation, and yeah, I think it was a good summary.
Good, good, great. So we are now at almost 15 minutes to closing. What I'm going to do is to open up the panel then to Q&A. from the audience, because we think that participation is really key, while also saying that within the International Fund for Agricultural Development, and I should have added, I'm also the co-chair of the ILC. So I also co-chair the International Land Coalition, and I really believe in a lot of the things that all of you are talking about. I'm hoping that the next time, because at the international arena, when we are talking about small-scale farmers and producers, the question that always comes to me is how much? And we need to know that from all of you, because I can't put words into your mouths. So what we need is all of you to advocate for the how much, the how, to whom, and the capacity that is also required, but also the solutions that you're providing, right? So it's really important to think about it while wearing the shoes of a possible contributor. Okay, so with that, I have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so 3 questions, and Maria Elena, if you could help us. So I have the lady here. Where's the first one?
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Yes, funding is very important, climate financing. However, we also... yes, I'm Lani Ribagay from Asian Farmers Association. Aside from climate financing, because we're talking about land tenure, we also need, very important, the legal framework in each country on land rights. Because how can we transition to agroecological practices if we do not have control over land? So if the land has big landowner, then the landowner decides what to produce, where to sell. So if there's, we really need this, no, reform in the land rights, no. So not only for the land, for forestry, no, we have, and the fishery, control of the coastal resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. My name is Christina from the International Land Coalition. My question was on land tenure, so I will not take time from the others, but it's just I would like you to include in your answers how much land tenure really matters for you to be able to produce food in a sustainable way, how much land matters for you to face climate crisis, and how much land matters for you to be able to adapt and invest in new solutions. Thank you so much.
Good evening, good morning. My name is John Sarmiento from Philippines, a member of Asian Farmers. Actually, this is a guide on the question on how, when, and how much, and who. No? This is actually location-specific and farmer-specific, and it depends on how the farmer cope on the adaptation and mitigation. Because in the transition to agroecology, my experience after Yolanda, after I hit this calamity, if I'm a diversified farmer and have 10 components on the agroecology, it's a huge money. And there's no spaces to regain after the calamity from the government. For example, there's no Farmers Climate Emergency Fund. There's no Fishers Climate Emergency Fund, because after the calamity, we need to rebuild our livelihood. If you have 10 cows and then they all died after the calamity, how much money on that? There's only cow. And how about the vegetable? And how about the seeds? And how about the whole landscape of the farm? So the amount is not exactly, it's a location-specific, region-specific, farmer-specific, and depend also on the tenure of the farmer. It's different from the farmer. They have the rights to cultivate the lands and what land is said. So the question is, the financing institution and the other intermediary institution, I think there's a lot of effort to make a research, actual research, on how much per region, per farmer, and then in every impact. This is my, as a farmer, no? As a farmer affected in this climate change. Thank you.
Hola, buen día a todos y a todas. Mi nombre es Luis. Yo quería hacer una pregunta a los ponentes y también al FIDA. Nuestros agricultores familiares ya están haciendo, muchos están haciendo la agricultura orgánica, biológica, agroecológica, y muchos quieren hacer. Y si nosotros queremos acelerar la adaptación, la mitigación y producir de manera más sostenible, construyendo los sistemas alimentarios sostenibles, necesitamos de inversión. Inversión del Estado, del municipio y también inversión de las organizaciones multilaterales. Y cuando acá llamamos un llamado, así como hicimos hace días al presidente del FIDA, no que el FIDA sea un financiador, sino que el FIDA pueda ser un órgano de las Naciones Unidas que nos ayude a ascender a los fondos que existen ahí del cambio, agroclima, fondo verde, que puede ayudar a las organizaciones a acelerar la transición de la agricultura convencional para la agricultura orgánica y agroecológica. Y la pregunta es esa, FIDA puede ser, este es el planteo de nosotros, sabemos que la pelea tenemos que hacer a los países, a los gobiernos, pero el FIDA puede ayudar a ceder estos recursos para la agricultura que queremos.
Okay, so if there's, what I'm going to do is hand it over for one key thing that each one of the panelists wants to say in response to the question, and I'll only give you 45 seconds. So take 45 seconds to think about what you want to say. Because 45 seconds, and then I want to move to our closing keynote.
Okay, so to respond to one of the questions on tenure rights or land tenure, I think we know that it's linked, secure land tenure is linked to achieving or fulfilling many of the human rights. We cannot achieve many of the human rights without secure land rights. And we also know that it's linked to achieving many of the development goals, the 2030 agenda. And for us, small-scale farmers, it's basically we need to make a decision on what we need to do in our farms if we want to diversify, if we want to invest our resources, we have to have that secure tenure. Without that, then it would be difficult to transition to a more climate-resilient farm. Thank you. 45 seconds.
Thank you, Irish. Land rights and human rights are intertwined critically. I think that's my takeaway. Alberto.
Eu também gostaria de tentar, nestes últimos minutos, segundos, dizer que o tema da terra para nós outros agricultores familiares é extremamente importante. Nós outros estamos a cada dia a terra no mundo se concentra na mão de pouca gente. A maioria dos agricultores tem pouca terra. E aí agora estamos vivenciando outro fenômeno, que é a estrangeirização da terra. Não é mais os grupos econômicos do próprio país. São grandes empresas que compram milhares de hectares de outros países. E se achica cada dia a terra de los campesinos, de los indígenas, e nos quita os territórios, o problema do água. Então, o problema da terra é um problema mundial muito sério que as Nações Unidas, através do FIDA, da FAO, têm que colocar este tema em suas diretrizes e em seu planejamento. E o segundo ponto é exatamente volver a necessidade de grande fundo mundial de apoio à agricultura familiar, que pode ser através do FIDA, porque se nós outros não discutimos isso, estes recursos se vão aos países, aos grupos econômicos outra vez. e nós outros agricultores familiares que produzimos alimento, não temos acesso a esses recursos que poderíamos melhorar a qualidade de vida, não somente de nós outros, mas do planeta e do mundo.
So everything has been said, actually. But I want to say, in the context of land rights and land tenure rights, is we have to also focus on women and youth. Why? Women are the ones that produce, actually, in small scale. And youth, because everyone is telling the youth that agriculture is where they're going to get their employment. But coming from maybe my country, for example, women do not own land. Youth wait until their parents, and actually the male only, wait until their parents do the succession to get it. So those are also some of the things that if we want to achieve sustainable food systems and climate resilient food systems, we have to look at. But then I also want to echo that quantifying finance for either adaptation or mitigation is very difficult, but it has to be context specific. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Lorraine. So I have from Irish, So land rights are human rights. Alberto, definitely we need a fund, and there's increased fragmentation and land is going into foreign hands, and land needs to be part of the global agenda, but really supporting a fund for family farming. And Lorraine, women and youth need to be part of the thinking that we're doing, and quantifying is important, but everything needs to be context specific. These are sort of the points that all of you are making. I'm going to hand this over to now our closing keynote before I close the session. And our closing keynote is Laura Lorenzo, who's the director of the World Rural Forum. Over to you, Laura.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the speakers, because they are really the experts on this issue. No? I would like to mention some of the ideas that they mentioned. First, I will mention that family farmers think that they are in a climate state of emergency. I noticed that because of the situation, no? But they are solution providers. That is key messages that we can take from them. No? They know how can they transit towards more sustainable, how can they sequestrate carbon, they know how can do agroforestry, and so on. And land should be in the center, no? In the center, land governance, security, land rights is in the center of their transition towards more sustainable food systems. No? Another key message from my side is that we need specific public policies to help them to really scale up their capacity. And we need finance. We hear a lot about finance. I've mentioned that only 0.8% goes to family farmers. We conduct another study and another analysis that is lower. Only 0.3% goes directly. Management is managed by family farmers themselves. So we need to, for sure, to scale up this, no? And we hear that this is about policy will. It's not about we don't have the solution. It's about how can move from why to how. That is the element, no? It's also a question on collaboration. It's not about only farmers that can provide the solution. They need extension services. They need the international organizations to be there with them. No, we have the decade on family farming. We have already, together with IFAD, with FAO, with all the farmers organizations, a decade to scale up the role of family farming in the context of climate change. No? And another idea that I think is very, very important for us is to trust in the capacity of the farmers organizations. They have the knowledge, they have the representatives to go to the decision-making processes. They have the capacity to manage this fund that we are requesting as a family farming adaptation climate fund. No? So this is the process that we are now. We wish to collaborate a lot as farmers organization with IFAD in this arena. With ILC, for sure, we are members of ILC, to put also land in the center of this request that we are doing here. Thank you so much.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this is that hour or that minute where we have to close. So what I'm going to say is a couple of things just in closing, because there were also questions. At IFAD, we're very proud to support family farmers organizations, farmers organizations, and civil society and indigenous peoples organizations. Indigenous people, especially 80% of them are they're all custodian of 80% of the world's biodiversity, and if we really want to think about a livable planet, we've got to focus on them. In this context, this is the reason that we're also very proud to be hosting the International Land Coalition, because we believe that land tenure is key, if not fundamental. I mean, this was the area I did my PhD in. So land tenure is key and fundamental to the investments, to the quality of farming that we do, to the overall diversity that we see, and the sustainability of this world. So we are advocates as an organization. What I need for all of you to do, while IFAD will continue to advocate, will continue to champion, and will continue to have and present the voice and provide a platform for farmers organizations, for family farms, I think what is really important, and now I'm speaking with my IFAD hat on especially, is really having the recognition that, yes, when we go to contributors, that all of you raise your voice, that you become the advocates of the fact that we need this fund, that we need organizations like IFAD to be at the forefront of championing in it, because it's far more credible when it comes from all of you than when it comes from me. Second, that you also, and I know I'm saying this controversially and not all of you agreed, but when I say think about the number, think about what contributors, you go to any contributor out there, they need to know, what are we funding? How are we going to fund it? How will you ensure that this goes to the right people on the ground? And how much are you looking for? These are the 4 questions every funder will ask me. So this is the question that you need to arm us with. Whether we go to the Green Climate Fund, whether we go to the Global Environment Facility, whether we go to any other member state contributor, on behalf of all of you, these are the 4 questions they ask us. So if you can help to empower us, we will be your voice, but we need you to be the voice, and we need you to empower us with those numbers, with those facts, because in the absence of that, we cannot make the whole greater than the sum of the parts. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, let's do a picture.
Goodness, feed me. Goodness, feed me. Goodness, feed me. Goodness, feed me. Take me home.